Alright, so back in Planet Zoo, we're at a Flamingo Habitat, and as you can see, plenty of flamingos in there. We have all sorts of enrichment for them. Their status is pretty good. If we take a look at one, he needs more hard shelter, but overall, overview, welfare, and everything, they're doing pretty well. Now, in this habitat, we have no forms of education, so if you come to this video, you're probably looking for how to improve the education rating or how to boost it beyond just slapping down a speaker and it's reaching some people, but it's not really having the desired effect that you want. And especially with the addition of the new educators, we can really improve education pretty quickly here too. So let's say you've just built a brand new habitat. This one obviously has a bigger vantage point than you might do for flamingos. So if you have some other animal, you might have 1 or 2 viewing spots. As you can just see from the sheer size of this one, it has 3 different viewing spots. So we have the front, the very front of the zoos from this direction down here. So as you can see, people come in, they might, obviously, since there's only one habitat, go to the left, or if they want to see flamingos, they're going to head this way. They'll probably stop right about here. So you have purposely placed either the forage pool, their urban enrichment, was a mirror mobile, all up here so that they would drift down this way. Now the other option you could do, if you were a guest, is head up the hill here onto this flat platform. As you can see from their vantage point, you can still see straight out and see the flamingos that way. Mainly because most of them are down this way on the right, they're going to head that way on the right as well. Now, once there are more habitats, like down to the right, down this way, guests might meander, they might use this walkway. But right now, and in the future, you might have an issue where you've built this really cool platform and no one is using it. It's a prime area. As you can see from a creator's point of view, this is the best spot to see all of the flamingos at. Instead of going up here in the front, though it is cool to not have a barrier, here you're basically in the habitat. The barrier is below you, but as a guest you wouldn't be able to see that. You can see all of the flamingos pretty easily here as well. So, to draw people here, we're going to boost education, use those educators that were recently added, and all in one, get to use this new platform we've built. So, first thing we can do is the basics. We'll use that pre-used habitat board and education set. Flip them around. Usually I'm going to place them by the lights that I've placed around. You can usually only place a few of these and you should be good. People who are seeking out the information about the animal are already going to head towards these anyway. So we head around. I'm actually not going to put ones on that main walkway because I don't want them to use it anymore. Alright, so we have our boards down. Obviously we can turn them all on, set them to greater flamingo. And next we have our speakers. I usually don't recolor speakers for this zoo. I will recolor them just for the theming of it all. Turn off that heat map. I'm actually going to place them on each of the lampposts that are here. These lampposts, in addition to being a light focal point during the nighttime, will be our audio and somewhat visual one during the daytime too. Alright, so we have those on. And we've spaced them out just so they can reach a pretty good range, sorted to 10. So that anyone who's walking by, inadvertently, they're going to hear about flamingos whether they want to or not. That way we get our education boost up. You see this little red or pinkish line here in the middle. As you may know, that's a bad thing, a negative thing, meaning that if a guest were standing right here, and in Planet Zoo it's going to happen, someone's going to stand right here and they're going to hear either a mixed message or it'll be a noise issue. So we'll just reduce it down to 8, which is fine. Some are going to be closer than others, like these two. They're going to be pretty close. So, see how far we can go out, not too far. So let's move that one. We'll hide that one on a rock here. That way we can expand it out. And it won't be too far for whatever future habitat's over here that's going to have a speaker as well. Okay, so we have our ones. They're getting educated about that. But like I said, I want them to use this platform. So using the new Educator, we're going to Facility, go to our Animal Talking Point. You can recolor them, doesn't do too much of a difference visually for them. And especially where I have this particular one. Since it's right into the habitat, the Educator likely will get to throw food. We'll see. Yep, Greater Flamingo, as you can see, the status changed to can throw food. Now if I were to move this to a different area, still have it about Greater Flamingos, maybe put it somewhere that wouldn't be as ideal. As you see, there's a different amount of space here, right up front. It's going to draw a crowd to this area, which is also good. Boom, you can see that status changed immediately to the water obstructing the food throw. Water is pretty much always going to obstruct food throwing for most of the animals that you can have a talk with right now. So we'll keep that over there. I always start at January so I can space mine out from there on out. And when there's not a talk, we'll use that new aquatic playlist. Alright, now we have a separate issue as well, that there's currently no educators. So to hire an educator, you're going to hit Zoo, go to Staff, see Educators is at 0, the newest one. Hire an educator, it can be anyone, of course. You can train them up as you go. Now, of course, we're playing in sandbox mode, so we won't need to train any of them up. He's already at 5 stars. But as you see, we're going to need to assign him to a work zone. Now, if I assign him to Island Entrance, that does include the Flamingo Habitat. But as soon as you place one down, you technically have added a new facility. Same way if you added a new building, you're going to have to go to Staff again, go to Work Zone, Island Entrance, see 11 buildings, 1 staff room. But once we add, zoom back in, see, we have to add our animal talking point. Add that one, you can see it down there, Animal Talk 1. And now he's all good to go. See the buildings amount change, make sure you do that, otherwise they're not going to go to your talking point. Or they might deprioritize it as you add more of those talking points. Now up there is good, there's obviously going to draw a crowd, so we're going to replicate those, Control D, to add some more. And now here I do want the focus to be right in the center. So I'm going to only add them here. And one more straight across. There we go. Make sure that's turned on. And now the speaker issue is interesting. They may patch this at a different point, but the speaker actually does not have any influence over the animal talking points. You can actually have a twofold. When there's no animal talk, you can still have Greater Flamingo speaker playing information. I actually like this better because if we zoom in, you can still hear the music. The aquatic playlist is still going at the same time as your education about Greater Flamingos. Now hopefully that will draw more than just our staff, caretaker there admiring the flamingos, to that direction. We'll check back in a little bit to see, make sure they're headed that way. Now the other issue is, like I said, I don't want them to use this, so I could just raise the barrier wall up, so that way they have to visit the flamingos from either that side or this side. Which will be pretty easy, editing the barrier that way. Alternatively, I can just use that space. And see, there's 3 different viewing points, 3 different areas that the guests are going to go at some point. Maybe not all of them will go that way, but some of them will go out and still be looking at the flamingos, even though they could go this way. So instead of fighting them on that, we're just going to use that to our advantage. And again, same thing with that habitat board. The thing you can always do too is test out where your guests are going to stand by just sort of watching where they naturally go as soon as you open a new habitat. You see they were mainly standing in the middle there, so I'm going to make sure my boards are facing that direction too. You can also use that as a good marker where they stand for when you're adding those educational speakers. Now for this one, like I said, eventually I'm going to put a habitat right here joining this one, so I don't want the speaker to be too crazy. So we're going to turn that on, but we're going to decrease the range to about 8, usually about 5 to 8. It's pretty close to the barrier. 5 I believe is the default. So that way I can offset them. I can have a speaker and education board in the gap here, and do the same thing over here, create a gap. So that way we're not blocking off that future habitat we're using. Now next thing is to see our actual animal talk being conducted. So, right now it's marked we have it scheduled for January, so what we're going to do, just for testing purposes, we're going to move that down to July. That gives your educator all of June to get to the next area. After the latest patch, as of the time of this video coming out, educators will space out the amount of time that they actually need to use to get between talks. Usually they'll leave beforehand if they have nothing else that they're scheduled to do, about a month or two right before the talk to make sure that they're going to the right area. Now my only other issue here, since this is a newer build too, is that our talk is down here, our staff room is way back there. Same thing for our keepers, really everyone there. So if we look at the big overview of the map, especially by work zone. If we went to edit that work zone, you can see people have to come from all the way over here. Our staff have to move from down in this right direction all the way this way to actually be utilized if they're a keeper or if they're a vet visiting that area, as well as our educators. So eventually this is probably about the maximum range I would go without creating a new staff room, so that next habitat can be right there. You could do one there, on the right behind that building if you really wanted to. But anything beyond this point, you'd need another staff room. So if we built further on these pathways, anything beyond here, definitely going to add a new staff room. That way, no one is complaining about how far they have to walk. And you can see educators have an efficient workload. The keepers have a low to efficient workload because their ratio of how far they're walking to the animals they're taking care of is pretty low. But also we have the handicap of having a fully trained up staff right now. So they're going to complain less, they're going to do their job better. So as fast as you can, especially in a new zoo build, you're going to increase the training of those keepers. After that I would do a mechanic, then I would finally do a vet. Unless you're in franchise mode and you're just starting a new zoo and you don't have a researched animal, I would do keepers, then vet, then mechanic. Educators, I'd probably put them on par with the vendors, where you don't have to increase their training too quickly. As a matter of fact, I would even make sure you go back and do that with every single new hire you have, is lower their salary if you're in a non-sandbox mode, just to save you some money there. Of course, once you train, it'll automatically go back up and tick up from there, so you might as well save some on the front end before you're actually training them up. Now, another thing to worry about with animal talks, and all buildings now have this issue as well, is the scenery rating. Now, I typically don't change the scenery rating at all because I haven't seen it really have much of an effect. I haven't seen that guests will learn more from having better scenery, but the reason we want them to learn more, obviously, to learn how to protect and conserve those animals out there, right? But also for their donations. If you're not in sandbox mode and have your unlimited amount of money, with all this education, that means your guests are now going to donate more because they know more about the animals, so they care about them more. So if you go to guest facilities, make sure it's on all. And then your donation box, I'm gonna recolor ours just for fun. You can see where they gather, as well as it being a great point for your speakers and your habitat education boards. It can also be a great point for your donation bins. Perfect there. Once the talk happens, they're definitely going to be donating, so we'll put one there. We'll throw down a second one in that front area since it's the high point right now. Perfect. Now the other issue you're going to run into is guests are highly educated. That's great. That means they're donating more. You can see already $200 just in that couple seconds for greater flamingos. The other issue you're going to run into is that guests don't have cash and they need an ATM to get to. This is something I see left out a bunch of times. Is that you can put an ATM right up at the front, but guests are really going to want an ATM probably about halfway through your zoo, different like midpoints. That way they can actually go back, get cash out so that they can donate. So what we're going to do, since we're just starting out and we know people are going to start moving this direction for that animal talk, you can see them already heading that way, we're going to put an ATM right over there. So that way, if they already have viewed them, or if they're going to view them, they could stop by the ATM on the way back from the talk, go to our donation bin and donate, or vice versa. Later on, if you have more animals down that pathway this direction, they can view the flamingos, go to the ATM, head down that way, and maybe donate at a different animal. And as you see, right on time, like I said, about a month beforehand, so when they're 2 months beforehand, so we're going to use that time to space out when their talks are going to happen. His talk happens in July, which is in just a few moments, because it's still June. He's already scheduled that talk, and there it is. And there you go, just like that. Your education ratings should have gone up. Before we started, education was at a 1.5 star, and just from that one habitat and all that work there, we've increased it now to 2 stars. Great thing is now is we have the education tab they've added in a recent update. See again that 2 stars. Average is still just under a star, not very good just yet. But you can also go one by one and see where are guests learning information about each animal. As you add more animals, this will change periodically which ones they learn the most about. See from conservation boards, which are the ones with the pre-chosen topics, our education boards, which are the ones we placed all around the different habitats. Next, we have our speakers. Look at that. 84% was learned from our education speakers from their different areas. Oh, see the animal talk throwing food in there. Perfect. Audio guides. Audio guides are sold at information booths. So before the start of this video, I put a information booth right at the front. Just makes sense, of course. Information booths sell those audio guides. So we go to prices. See the audio guides. Make a small profit off of them. I typically lower the price on them because real world scenario, it's an easily accessible thing that zoos would offer for super cheap, so sell it for $1. You're not really trying to make money off of it. You're not going to make a ton of money off of audio guides, but you're going to get a better conservation rating if more people are using them, or a better, education rating. And now our last one here is talks. Talks are at 0% because the first one is happening and still happening. But as you can see, oh, it just ended. So as you can see, even after it's ended, boom, just like that, people are using that new platform. Because we had a talk there, it drew them to that direction. And now you can see the flow of guests has reversed from the beginning of the video. Just like that, without even adding another animal, without even adding another, a bathroom or a food option, just from adding that animal talk, the traffic has changed dramatically. The exact reverse of what we saw at the beginning is now our desired effect. And guests will continue to come back because they're going to also schedule time, just like you schedule time for the animal talks. They're going to make time to head down that direction to balance out how many talks they can go to, because they want to see that and they want to see the food that gets thrown. See the food down there, because the animals are going to be really close. They're going to get a great view, and you get to use that new platform you built or that new viewing area you built. And in the meantime, you can block off that or change that area or add a whole new area too. Alright, so I'm going to have more about education ratings and how to increase that guest education rating all the way up to 5 stars. That you can see with just one animal, you've increased it to 2 stars from those new offerings and from balancing out where your speakers are and what your guests are learning about. You can even see the cost for all the education, as you see this in education bonus right now too. One more thing I didn't get to speak about too much, mainly because I'm on sandbox mode. It's a little harder to show. I'll show on a franchise or a non-modified zoo. Your vet research, the amount of research you put into each animal, advances how much your guests get out of it, because they're going to get bonuses for fun facts, they're going to get better bonuses for the education boards you put out, and that scales as you increase your research. But as you can see right now, it's currently at gold, so we'll do another zoo, we'll do a fresh new build that shows how to get it from 0 when you are just starting, especially in a franchise zoo where you really want higher education, because you want those donations to roll in so you can keep building and keep adding to your franchise zoo or your career mode zoo. So we'll do that as well, so that way we can see exactly how to increase the overall education and get the most benefit out of that from scratch.